Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're going to be diving into a pretty interesting excerpt from Shayla Black's romance novel, Delicious. It focuses on that very first meeting between the two main characters, Luke and Alyssa. What did you find so interesting about it?
Well, what really stood out to me is the setting of their encounter. I mean, we have Luke, he's a celebrity chef, and he's brought to Alyssa's, wait for it, strip club.
Yeah.
Called, what was it, Sexy Sirens, I think, to discuss business. It's not exactly your typical setting for a first meeting.
No, definitely not your average coffee shop meet cute.
Right.
So right away, we learned that Alyssa is no ordinary, former exotic dancer. I mean, she's a savvy businesswoman. She owns the club, and she's also about to open a restaurant.
Oh, absolutely. And and don't forget, it's also the 5th anniversary of Sexy Sirens.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So we're really dropped into Alyssa's world at like this really pivotal moment.
Right.
Plus, there are these hints of a past encounter between her and Luke, something that clearly left a lasting impression,
And we also meet Tyler, the bouncer at Sexy Sirens. He's clearly smitten with Alyssa and worried about her, especially after, with her mother's recent death.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in this scene, I think. How do you think this setting kind of influences their dynamic?
Well, you've got to think about it like this. Luke is this very successful chef,
Mm-hmm.
and he has these dreams of this like very traditional, very picture-perfect family life. He's about to publish a cookbook, and he might even have his own TV show.
So he's looking for someone very specific.
Yeah, someone who kind of fits into this perfect image that he has in his mind, But then you have Alyssa, who represents this world that, a lot of people might consider taboo. Their backgrounds are like night and day. They're so different. But still, there's this immediate tension. There's this spark between them.
And it's not just the difference in their worlds, is it? I mean, we also find out that Luke is struggling with infertility.
Oh, right.
And that little detail, I think, adds a whole other layer to his internal conflict.
Absolutely. I mean, he yearns for this traditional family life, but he's facing a biological barrier to actually becoming a father.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how much of his desire for this, like, quote-unquote, suitable partner is really driven by societal expectations.
That's a good point. So, we have this clash of worlds, this tension fueled by their past, and then Alyssa performs.
Mm-hmm.
And not just any performance. It's like a carefully crafted routine meant to showcase her skills, her allure. She's in control. Like, she owns her sensuality.
Yeah. And Black is very deliberate in how she describes, Alyssa's power, like the red sequin jacket and the way she ends the dance, this final pose that kind of suggests this mix of strength and vulnerability. How do you think all of this affects Lupit?
Oh, he's completely captivated. The text really emphasizes his immediate physical reaction and how he's, barely managing to keep his composure. He's fighting his desire. He's fighting against these restrictions that he's kind of imposed on himself.
And we can't forget about Tyler.
Yeah.
His possessiveness adds this whole other layer of tension to this already charged atmosphere. It's like we're starting to see this triangle form, and then boom, the setting shifts. We're in Alyssa's private office.
Oh, yeah.
It's like we go from this electric energy of the club to this much more controlled, this much more like business-like space.
Right. Why do you think Black does this? What do you make of it?
Well, I think it's to emphasize, the different sides of Alyssa. We see her in both like her professional element and her sensual element.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that she's more than just the image she presents on stage. She's complex.
And we're about to see that complexity play out as they try to have this conversation about the restaurant opening.
Yeah.
Okay, so scene is set and the tension is almost palpable. So in this next segment, let's unpack their conversation and see how these kind of competing desires, I guess, start to play out. Okay, so we're in Alyssa's office now, right?
Uh-huh.
Totally different vibe than the club. And Alyssa's all business, wants to talk about the restaurant. But Luke is, I think, pretty rattled.
He is, yeah. He even tried to back out of the deal.
Yeah.
Says he shouldn't have made the agreement in the first place.
Wow.
But Alyssa doesn't let him off easy.
So what does she do?
She reminds him that he was the one who approached her,
Oh, right.
with the deal.
Yeah.
In exchange for, well, let's just say a very memorable encounter.
Right.
And she also points out that she's already, announced that he's going to be the guest chef. Her entire business launch hinges on this.
Right. And it's interesting, though, how she handles it all, right? I mean, she's obviously disappointed, but she's so calm. She stays in control, even kind of turns it around, implying that Luke might be projecting his own discomfort onto her.
Absolutely. It really challenges the assumptions people might have about someone in her profession.
Right, exactly.
Alyssa is clearly comfortable with her sexuality, and she's definitely not afraid to call out Luke's hypocrisy.
She's like, hey, we both knew what this was.
Exactly. You said it perfectly.
Yeah.
And she reminds him that she held up her end of the bargain.
It's a really powerful moment. I think it shifts the entire dynamic between them.
For sure.
I mean, Luke is used to being the one in control, especially with women, but Alyssa, she's not playing by his rules.
Nope. She doesn't fit that mold of the typical, I guess, passive female character you often find in these types of novels.
And it's driving him crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because he's so attracted to her, but also terrified of what that attraction might lead to.
Especially with his whole thing about wanting a traditional family.
Right. And his infertility.
Mm-hmm.
He even brings up, his current girlfriend, Emily, almost like he's reminding himself of the life he thinks he should be pursuing.
But let's be real. He can barely remember what she looks like when he's with Alyssa.
Yeah.
Their chemistry it's undeniable. And Alyssa senses that. She even points out the difference between the kind of lukewarm connection he has with Emily and the passionate encounter they shared.
Ouch. It's like she's holding up a mirror to his desires.
Yeah.
Forcing him to confront what he really wants. Makes you wonder, what would it take for someone like Luke to break free from all of that, the societal expectations, to embrace what actually feels right, even if it means leaving his comfort zone? It's
something a lot of us can relate to, I think. That pull between what you should do and what you actually desire. I think that's what makes this excerpt so interesting. It explores these themes of desire, societal pressure, and the courage it takes to just be yourself.
Totally. So we have Lucas, grappling with his attraction, his internal conflict, and then you have Alyssa, confident, independent, challenging him at every turn. What do you think is going to happen as the story unfolds?
I don't know. That's the beauty of a good story. It keeps you guessing. But one thing's for sure, the tension between them is off the charts.
Yeah.
This excerpt has done a great job, I think, of setting the stage for a relationship that's probably going to be both explosive and transformative.
So do you think Lucid will give in? Or keep fighting it?
And will Alyssa settle?
Right. And how are these two very different worlds going to collide?
I have a feeling it's going to be a wild ride.
Let's dive into the final part of this excerpt and see what happens. Okay, so where we left off, Luch is desperate to get out of there, trying to escape that crazy attraction to Alyssa.
But Alyssa, she's not letting him off that easy. And this is, I think, where you see her strength, her confidence. She doesn't beg him or try to get him to stay.
Right.
Instead, she just calmly reminds him about their agreement and that she did what she promised,
I think that's such a boss move. She's not playing the victim at all. She's just holding him accountable for what he said and what he did.
And it throws Luke off.
Yeah.
Big time. He's so used to being in control, calling the shots.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to women. But Alyssa, she refuses to play his games.
And you can feel his frustration. He's totally into her, but he's also scared of what it all means. He's stuck between, I don't know, the life he thinks he should have and this intoxicating pull towards Alyssa and her world.
It's like she's holding up a mirror to all those societal expectations we talked about.
Right.
Luke's so focused on what he should want, what the quote-unquote perfect partner should be, that he's totally ignoring his own desires.
And what's even crazier is that Alyssa, she doesn't even try to fit into that mold.
Nope.
She doesn't shy away from her past, doesn't apologize for who she is. In fact, she challenges his whole view of her, makes it very clear that she is not some damsel in distress,
Exactly. And she even tells him that, beyond their business deal, she hasn't agreed to anything else.
Yeah.
It's like she's almost daring him to want more, to, step outside his comfort zone and actually see her for who she really is.
And that's where Black leaves us. With Lukic, in this moment of total desperation, grabbing Alyssa's hand and putting it on, well,
Oh, wow.
his very obvious arousal.
Yeah.
It's such a raw move, so vulnerable. It says so much about, everything he's going through. He's stripping away that perfect facade and just laying it all out there. What does Alyssa do? She doesn't freak out or anything.
Yeah.
She just kind of watches him. It's a really powerful way to end the excerpt. So many questions, though.
Right.
Will he give in?
Yeah.
Will she demand more? And how are these two these two opposite worlds gonna collide? I don't know. What stood out to you the most?
Well, I think what I loved about this whole excerpt is how Black kind of flips the script on a classic romance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she gives us this female character who is desirable, but also powerful.
Right.
She owns her sexuality, refuses to be defined by what society thinks she should be. Makes you think, what if we all had the courage to be more like Alyssa, you know?
Would it? Yeah.
Embrace those desires, even if they, like, challenge the norm. Stop trying to fit in. Just be ourselves.
I think that's the real power of the story. It's not just like a typical romance.
Yeah.
It's about self-discovery, about fighting against what society expects, and ultimately just being true to yourself.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, listeners, that's it for our deep dive into this excerpt from Delicious. I'm hooked. It's such a cool blend of romance and mystery and, I don't know, social commentary. What about you?
Oh, totally agree. Definitely a story that'll stick with you.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that, you know, sometimes those most fulfilling journeys are the ones that take us off the, off the beaten path.
That lead us to unexpected places. If you're looking for a story that'll challenge your assumptions and really make you think, you gotta check out Delicious.
It's a good one.